All right, so the plan is to finish up Siman 3:15 tonight and do Chazor on 3:02. I don't think so. I don't think we learned the Alter Rebbe inside. We did the Machaber. I don't think we did the Alter Rebbe on that. I don't believe so. Anyway, before we get to that, I just want to review the sheet that I sent out earlier today, or tonight rather. That's correct. And that is just going over the basis for the halacha of not covering a barrel on Shabbos. So this is on Shabbos Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, where it says that Rav says, Hi Farunka, I think is what it's called, Apalga de Kuba Mutter, Akula Kuba Aser. This garment on half of the barrel is permissible, on the entire barrel is not permissible, it's forbidden. So what exactly is the issue with covering a barrel with a garment? So Tosfos says that it's considered like you are making a oil. Now, the question is, the question that Tosfos asked on himself is that we see in other cases that it's not forbidden to put kalim on top of kalim or covers on top of kalim. For example, there's a whole discussion, we learned about it, about putting a pot on top of a stove, resting a pot on top of a stove. They used to rest it, it used to be held up by the walls, and there was space underneath and so on. So Tosfos says that a barrel is different because it's very big. Very big. What's the difference if it's very big? So I said last time, so I said last time, the Chazon Ish says that because it's very big, when you cover it, that is what is considered to be making the walls. Normally we say that in order to make an isser, when you're not intending to make an oil, it's only usher if you make both the walls and the roof. But if the walls are already there, it's mutter. Over here, that's correct. It doesn't mention it, but it does mention it in the previous discussion. If you look it up there, previous discussion talks about covering a meshameres over wine, and there it says only if there's a tefach empty. So Tosfos says that it's going on this also, even though it doesn't say it clearly. But the poskim asked that actually. The people who argue on Tosfos, they ask that question, why doesn't it say it? So the point is that Chazon Ish says that over here it's like you're making the walls as well. Because they're so far apart, until you cover it, the walls are not considered like they're there almost. Only way you cover it is that like they're there. So you're making walls and a roof. So actually, your fellow asked last week, why is it not considered like you're intending to make an oil? When in fact, you are intending to make an oil. You're intending to cover the wine and protect the wine. So I came across an Aruch HaShulchan who says an interesting thing. He says, and this is also to answer the question, why does it make a difference if you're covering half the barrel or not? Well, so if you're only covering half the barrel, why are you not making an oil? Right? You can't make a roof with even two walls, right? I mean, the Taz is a chiddush, 4 walls is worse than 2 walls because it's assumed that you need the space in between. But that was a Taz chiddush, not everybody held to that. But so what you have? So let's say it's covering half the barrel. You have 3 walls, right? Like a circle. So you have 3 walls, half circle, and a roof. So what's the difference? So Aruch HaShulchan says that that this is not like an unintended oil. This is like an intended oil because you want to protect the wine. However, he says, because if you only cover halfway, you're not really effectively protecting the wine, so then we don't consider it an oil. That's why it's only for covering the whole thing. The only difficulty with Hilchos Shabbos End is that why then do we care how big it is? So what if it's a small barrel? If that's considered a oil, mamash, an intended oil, so there should be no shear. I mean, a tefach, but that's it. So why do you definitely need the whole thing of a big one and so on? So I'm not clear about that. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
If you come over to this area and you see it's a tefach cover,
yeah,
you're allowed to continue to it? Also,
are you allowed to continue to cover a barrel that has a tefach covered?
yes.
That's
But you did not put it, so maybe the goy did that?
It doesn't make a difference. I think you can.
If you see it's there, tefach, doesn't know who did that, you continue.
It's definitely an oil harai, definitely not kavua, and you're allowed to add to an oil harai. So yeah.
So what? So the same concept. One put the weight halfway. Someone is coming. Do they have it?
Oh, you're asking. So why do you have to? Yeah, it's a good question.
So will that be chayav if two in it? One is chayav, two is not chayav.
There's no chiyuv here. It's only rabbanon. No chiyuv here. It's an interesting question.
What was the question?
I said if it's already covered a tefach, you can continue to cover it because you're only adding to an oil harai. So based on that, why did you say one person can do half, which we said is mutter, then let somebody else come and do the other half.
Oh, so it's allowed to, that was the beginning? It's allowed to cover.
Yeah. It's allowed to cover.
making a tefach, why would it allowed to cover?
So that's a question, Taka, that is asked by the Meforshim who argue on Tosfos. The Rashba and the Ravid argue on Tosfos because they say there's no concept of making an oil when it comes to cover kalim at all, like we see in other sources. They don't accept, they're not happy with this whole thing. Big, small, they say, if big is the issue, why does it tell you if you cover half it's not an issue? Why doesn't it tell you if you cover the whole thing? If it's small, it's okay. And why does it not give a shear? How big is big? It's very ambiguous. So, and this is also one of their questions. Why just a half? Right? Why just a half? Sorry, why just the whole thing? Why is it not us if it's a half? That's one of the questions they ask. And therefore they say another pshat. They say the whole thing is not about oil, it's about that it looks like you're making a strainer. Because they used to put like a cloth over a barrel and pour the wine through the cloth. It looks like it. You're not, because maybe
That's why half wouldn't be a problem, because it wouldn't.
Exactly, because people wouldn't do half. Exactly.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
No, it just doesn't work. You want to be able to pour the wine in and not have to do whatever, half, whatever. So the point is, that is a question. So yep. I'm not sure about that. If somebody would cover half, which is mutter, then you could say, well, it's already there, so why not add to it? On the other hand, then you're doing away with the whole problem, unless you say that it can't cover half with the intent of covering the whole. I'm not sure. Too complicated for me, so I'm going to leave that for the
next week.
Next analysis. I don't know about next week, maybe next cycle. Okay. Now, some interesting points here that in answer to the question that I mentioned before that the Rashba asks, why does the Gemara not specify the size of the barrel if the size is so important? The El Yerabba says that we see in other places in Masechta Shabbos that there were standard sizes of different kalim. So when it talks about a barrel, everybody knew what a barrel is, and it didn't have to explain. We don't know. Nebuch, we don't know. It's a problem. And like I said last week, the Chazon Ish says we don't know the shear of what's big, but we know that it's bigger than a bed, because we see before that you can cover a bed as long as you don't move the walls there. So that's what it is. Anyway, along comes the Taz and says a nice chiddush. Taz says that this whole thing does not apply if it's the designated cover for the keli.
You said the barrel is bigger than the bed?
Yes, the barrel is bigger than the bed.
I can't imagine what kind of that.
If you want to see a barrel that's bigger than a bed, you can go to plenty of factories and you'll see big barrels. Maybe
that's true, but this is 2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago, they had big barrels. That doesn't mean that, these are not necessarily the barrels that you had in your cellar. They could have been the bigger barrels that were done by the what do they call the vintners? Vinters. Whatever it is, I'm not sure. But we see from the discussion about the bed that a bed is not considered a large size. So,
According to everybody, that's what it has to be. According to everyone.
I only saw one person say it, but it's logical. I mean, because we said that mutter as long as you don't, as long as the wall's already there. And here the whole chiddush is that even though the wall's already here, it's still us, right? That means in that case, we didn't have to come on to this issue. So the walls were there, but no problem. Okay, so the Taz says, that any time the any covering that is a designated cover for that keli, or even a normal cover for that keli, it's not an unusual thing. It's a normal way to cover that keli, whether it's actually for that keli or not. I mean, you have a thing that different. You have a big container. There's different covers for it. You may have 10 different containers. It doesn't have to be the one that's specifically made for this one, but it's made for this kind of keli. So that's not going to be. That's not going to look like you're making an oil, because that's just the designated cover for the keli. So it's not a problem. That is a chiddush of the Taz. Now, not everybody agrees with this Taz. The Alter Rebbe does not quote the Taz, leaves it out, doesn't specifically argue on him, doesn't bring it. The Mishnah Berurah questions the Taz based on a halacha that we're going to say later. It's like a strong question, because later we're going to say in Siman 320 that you're not allowed to cover a barrel with a cloth unless the cloth is a designated cover. Because if it's not the designated cover and it falls in, you might be upset that it's wet and you might squeeze it out. If it's a designated cover, yeah, big deal, so it's wet. That's what it's for. So Farkert, he says just the opposite. We see here that it is a designated cover. So he stays with the question. But in any case, for your information, Dali Rabbah says, you can rely on the Taz. Why, he says? Because the Rashba and the Ravid, like I mentioned before, they disagree with this whole concept. They say there's no such thing as making an oil when it comes to covering kalim. And in fact, the Shirei Knesses HaGdoila says that that's the minhag. Now, Dali Rabbah is not suggesting that we follow that minhag, because the fact that Shulchan Aruch says it, and the Rambam doesn't argue, and so on. But at least when you have the Taz to rely on, okay, rely on the Taz together with those Rishonim. So that's an interesting point. Now, if it is attached, sorry? Yeah.
Rav said half, actually using it as half, or you said something good?
I'm pretty sure it's a palga de kuba. Palga means half. I'm pretty sure, but despite my computer misbehaving, I'm going to ask it to bring up that Gemara. Give me a second.
We finished that.
Too many Sfarim. You see, you have too many.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi.
Yes, Baruch Hashem.
כן ירבו.
Amen. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
זכותו. צדיק גדול הזה שם. שזה הספר. הוא לא נתן לי אותו. הוא לא. שלח לי אותו, אבל זה... תראי, זה סלח.
Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Beis. Here we are. Amarav. Hai Farunka. Apalge de Kuba Shari. Akula Kuba Aser. So it's half and whole. Okay. So the point is that if it's attached, it's for sure okay. I made a little mistake here, actually. F should be just in the order of what I wrote here. F should be after 1, 2, and 3. The Aliraba Alter Mishnah Berurah should be on the Taz, which is E, and F should be after that. Whatever. Anyway, the point is that if the cover is attached, thank you, then it's for sure allowed, because we just like when it comes to covering something even that's attached to the ground, where normally you say anything attached to the ground is very serious to be considered, maybe like you're adding to a building and whatever. Nevertheless, if it's part of it, even if it's not physically attached, if there's a rope, if it's hanging, whole thing we learned in Siman 313, any way that it's clear that it belongs there, it's not considered like you're building when you cover it. So if it's attached, like with hinges, no question at all. And Rav Shlomo Zalman adds, if it has a handle, it's also mutter. And based on this, in terms of halacha lamaisa, the 39 halachas says, what's an example of something that might be considered large? He says a garbage can. Talking about not an inside one, but an outside one. So, nevertheless, if it's like the recycling bins where it's attached, no problem, you can close it. Even if it's not attached, if it has a handle, as most of them do, also mutter. If it doesn't, you lost it, whatever. Now we have a din lamaisa. From this whole discussion, we can come down to a din lamaisa. You shouldn't take something else. You have your flies buzzing around. You don't want them to be there. You shouldn't take some other thing, a cardboard box or whatever, and cover the garbage can. Because that, even if you're not moving it from place to place, you're not creating the walls or anything, because that could be considered like a large space.
I have a question about the garbage bin. Let's say on Friday, we put the garbage outside. Sometimes they come in on Shabbat in the morning and they dump it. And they leave it outside. We don't know how to leave the garbage outside. It's closed. And the grass, Sometime in the Friday
You have an
evening.
Erev. You have an Erev. You live with an Erev?
Yes.
So what's the problem?
Just take it inside, no problem.
Why not?
Okay.
Not muktzah.
Okay, I all the time I leave this because I know I'm going to synagogue. I don't want.
It's not muktzah.
Let's say there's no serve like 2 leads. So if only one lead, so the second one is broken, and you want to cover it, you could.
I don't know what you mean. One more time.
The big dumpsters, they have 2 leads.
Yeah.
Okay, one of them disconnected, the one is still attached.
You're talking about the big one, the green one.
Can you cover the other one if half is already covered, is your question?
Yeah, if I'm closing one lid, but it says attached,
Because you're allowed to.
can I?
You then cover the other one. It's an interesting question.
It's flying all around, so you can say we said we can cover that because Shabbat.
If it's allowed to, then you can cover it, yes. If it's not allowed, then you can't because it's Shabbat.
But the fly, no.
The flies can benefit from Shabbat. If it's Shabbat, you can't kill them.
No.
Simcha, big simcha for them.
So why in the small one, in the other one, you can take a box and close it?
No, I didn't say you can. You cannot. You cannot take a box. You can cover it with the kavua cover.
Only if it's a kavua.
Kavua cover.
Okay.
Yeah, closing one, when you consider after to use other materials like emulsive on something, or it was.
That's an interesting question. That's what you were asking before, basically. Can you add to half? So here, the half you're allowed to, not because it's there. I understand, but it's the same idea. Same idea. My thought is that you can, because you're adding to an oil harai. Not sure.
Leave it for next week.
Okay. So, Rashba and the Ravid we said already. 39 malachos is what I just said, that it brings down the idea of a trash can. Okay, with no further ado, we are going to learn this Alter Rebbe. I don't think we learned it inside last time. Yeah.
Put only half, the material was only half around the road. So there's no point to remove it completely. But you consider
Yeah, so it would seem, yeah. So it would seem. If it's all covering, then you can remove it. Alter Rebbe says that.
I can move it half. I think could be also considered as a.
Let's see what he says. You know what? Let's read it inside. We're about to read it. So let's read it. You test. Baggage ששייך על פי החבס לחסויסו, לא ישתכנו על פני כולם מבני אויל. אלא יניח מקצת פי המגולה. ושהחבס עלה לגמרי לחסר טפח, שעוס כשתך הבאר על פני כולה, הרי זה כהויסו אויל על חלל טפח. אבל מן החסר טפח אין בו משום אויל, שכל אויל שאין לו חלל טפח אין עיקר אויל כלל. Cloth that is spread over a barrel to cover it should not be spread over the entire barrel because that resembles creating a shelter. Instead, a small portion of the barrel's opening should be left uncovered. The above applies when the barrel is not entirely full, but rather there remains a handbreadth of empty space devoid of liquid, and thus when one spreads the cloth over the entire opening, he is creating a shelter over an empty space of a handbreadth. If, however, the barrel is not lacking handbreadth of liquid, the concept of creating a shelter does not apply because then a shelter that lacks the handbreadth of an empty space is not considered a shelter at all. אבל כשיש חלל טפח, אבל בשמחיצס זה, שחלל זה, כאן הדופני החבס, היו כבר עשויים מבעוד יום. כן, אין לסה בהם משום אויל, שמותר להניח כדי על פי הקיר בשבס כמו שסבור בסמרי שנו גימל, ואם בהם משום אויל על חלל הקירה, היו ודופני הקיר עשויים ואמרס כבר מבעוד יום. לזו גג הרעי שנוסקר ולסי יש אויל על הקשם מים ונחיץ תחתו בשבס כמו שסבור למעלה. הכיס של פי החובס גם כן המסכם בו לאויל אלא לכיסו בעלמה. אבל פי כן נדם על פי קירה מדי שפי החובס שבימיהם היה רוחב הרבה יסו מפי הקירה. שמי משמחס לכל פי, אז זה דומה לעשיס אויל אך שמחיץ עשויס מבוידיון. All right, forgive me for reading so much. Here we go with the English. Whenever there's a handbreadth of empty space, even though the walls around this empty space, i.e. the walls of the barrel already existed while it was still day on Friday, stringency is required. One might object, arguing that in this instance there should not be prohibition because of creating a shelter, for it is permitted to place a pot on a range on Shabbos, as stated in section 253. What is not considered to have constructed a shelter over the empty space of the range because the walls of the range already existed while it was still day on Friday, and our sage only forbade making a temporary roof when the person did not intend to make a shelter in an instance where the person erects the walls under the roof on Shabbos, as explained above. Similarly, it would seem that when placing a cover over the barrel, one does not intend to create a shelter, but merely to cover it. Nevertheless, covering a barrel is not comparable to placing a pot on a range because the openings of the barrels at the time of the Talmud were far wider than the openings of the ranges. In that era, thus covering the entire opening of the barrel could be said to resemble making a shelter, even though the walls were made while it was still day on Friday. That's my reading, Hebrew and English reading. It's good, excellent. So would
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
But here the Ravid and the Rashba would allow you to do it because it's a kli.
That's correct.
Wouldn't they?
What in just a little like kisu machasakol PM he chaser tevav nishadoyma mishum shadoyma the seiser oil. אין די, אבל הגוף שמורד להתללך, כמו שהסבר בסימן השני י"ד, לפי שם הגוף המסוכנת לכך, ותיקון המחיר חלה שהיא עמדת לכך. אוכל, אני אסקור אויל. השם כאן נכנס בלהגד. עכשיו אם יכול לכך, במקום מוקם אין בתיקון המחיר חלה שהוא עמד לכך. Wow. I didn't even notice this when I learned Alter Rebbe before. This is amazing. The Alter Rebbe is basically saying the Taz while still answering the question of the Mishnah Berurah on the Taz. Did you get that?
Again.
I'm going to say it in English and hopefully you'll get it. Listen carefully. Similarly on Shabbos, it is forbidden to remove a covering that covers the entire opening of a barrel because this resembles demolishing a structure. Rani at Shomea? Yeah. Similarly, and just like you can't cover the whole barrel, you can't take off a covering of a whole barrel because putting on that covering is like making an oil. Taking off that covering is like soiser, it's like demolishing an oil.
Off?
Removing.
All of it. Off?
Oh, half.
It doesn't say anything about that?
Sur little hakisa machasa kolpia. He doesn't say also little kol hakisa machasa kolpia. He says little hakisa machasa kolpia. So what if you take out off half of it?
That's how it's so. Because when you're covering it, you have to leave a little bit open. So this little bit open, you're going to change it from oil to not oil. So a little bit when you go backwards, you consider from oil and not to oil. And you consider a soil.
So Rabbi, if we have a garbage bag and we have a roof, and you go into that big container, like you pick it up and throw it. So this is considered אז זה מחובר.
גם שתי המגדולים?
כן.
הכיסוי מחובר, יש לו בין, אז שתי צירים.
כן, כן.
כל עוד זה מחובר זה לא בעיה.
אז מה הייתה השאלה שלך? חצי?
אחד מהם לא מחובר. אם אחד מהם לא קיים.
אם אחד מהם לא קיים.
שבור.
אז השני קיים? אז איך אתה לא הבנת את השאלה?
אפשר לעשות משהו במקום.
מאיפה תמצא משהו במקום?
מהחנות.
אז אתה הולך לשלם כסף בחנות?
לא. תמצא משהו.
לא, זה לא מתקבל על הדעת.
כסף שלך, פלסטיק, משהו.
אוקיי. אני מנסה לדעת.
I'm thinking maybe the Tzitz HaShulchan discusses this. Let me see if I can find him.
אז אם זה מחובר רבי, אז אין שום בעיה.
לא, שום בעיה.
אוקיי. כדי לחזון את זה בדיוק כמו לאחרון, דבר. עוד? בבקשה. מאשאללה. בוליווד? לא איתי עליו. אליהו? אוקיי, עובדים שם.
What's that?
אני זה. דף יומי. 5:30. עבודה. 6:15. 3:15. ואז אנחנו עושים אור למניין. תפילה.
באיזה שעה מניין?
התחיל ב6:15.
נאמץ.
אנחנו מגיעים, אין בעיה.
כל אחד יכול למניין?
לא כולם, יש כמה מניינים שם. בהתחלה מתחילים, המניין ראשון ב6:15. אחר כך 7, אחר כך 8, 3:00.
6:15?
כן.
שעה ל-18?
מה שעה? לא.
זה 6:15.
מי מה שעה? להבין לזה. 6:15 מתחילים את ברכות השחר.
מניין פה.
6:15 מתחילים את ברכות השחר.
אתה כבר בעניין הזאת?
כן, אני עובד, מה אני אעשה? אני לוקח את הילד שלי בשעה 7:30, הוא צריך להיות במיאמי.
Okay. The Mishnah Berurah and the Chaya don't answer the question. They say that if it's half covered, you can cover the whole thing. Even just if it's a tefach covered, you can cover the whole thing. And for that matter, you can uncover half, as long as you leave a tefach. Doesn't say. No, it doesn't say.
So let me ask you, if the content out of it, some cover it not completely. It's not higher, correct? And the second one, will cover it completely. It's going to be higher.
There's no chiyuv here. It's only Rabbanan.
But okay.
Is it also for him to cover it after one person did it partially?
Yeah.
He is being moisef on the oil, all right, because the other person made it.
It doesn't know, Rabbi.
Between the two of them, it was made. So obviously, it can't be on purpose. If the first person does it, having in mind the second person is going to do it, that's awesome. But if they do it separately, it could be it is mutter, based on this Mishnah Berurah. First one's allowed. You didn't do anything wrong. The second one comes. Alter Rebbe doesn't say. You want me to tell you what he doesn't say? He doesn't say. What can I say? Alter Rebbe, I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know. According to the Mishnah Berurah, it's allowed. According to Alter, it seems like it's allowed. According to Alter Rebbe, I don't know. He also answers another question. Rafael. Bedoichak, he answers it. This is the Ktsois HaShulchan. He says, no, he says it. He says it. It's a doichak. He says, why is this not like a regular oil? Like the Aruch HaShulchan says. I mean, you're protecting the wine. Why not? And if it is regular oil, so then why does it have to be big? Why does it have to be, you're creating the walls? When you're making regular oil without walls, you have a problem. You know what I'm saying? So he says, Chiddush, he says that maybe the real oil is to protect human beings, or at least animals. Not to protect other things. It's not a real oil. But it looks like an oil. But because it only looks like an oil, we have these heterim, that it's only aser if it's very big and with the walls and all of these details. So perhaps that's like maybe to explain, because I said from the Aruch HaShulchan before that the reason it's a problem is because you're meaning to protect, and if it's only half covered, it's not really protecting. But then why does it have to be very big? So this is trying to answer that even though it's for protection, but because it's protecting a non-living item, it's not as strict, and it's only aser under very specific circumstances. A very interesting chiddush. Okay.
Who said he mentioned that it is a touch? According to who? Because nobody mentioned it is a touch to the mouth. So,
Where did I see it? I mean, it's clear from Alter Rebbe Hilchos Sukkah, where you're even allowed to cover a sukkah with a roof that's attached, even though it's mamish for the sake of protection. You understand? Protecting a human being, right? With no.
Couldn't we do hatmana also, like to keep like the dirt from getting in the food or something like that? I remember there was a case. Is that like this?
Shabbos. Hatmana is always before Shabbos. You can't start Hatmana on Shabbos.
No, but there were. But wasn't there? We could do some sort of covering on Shabbos because you didn't want to get the food dirty or something like that. I forgot
exactly.
The case.
Yeah. That it says. Even though you can't do Hatmana on Shabbos, but you can cover a pot that it shouldn't get there. Things shouldn't fall in it. Right, but that's not a very regular size pot. A regular size pot.
Yeah. So that's not. Is that a chiddush of any sort, or is that just practical?
No, it's not a chiddush because small kalim, we don't apply the halachas of an oil by covering small kalim. This is a chiddush. The fact that we do say it by large kalim, that's considered a chiddush. The fact that we don't say it by small kalim, that's considered like standard.
Study about the sukkah. If it's a tefach, you're allowed to continue.
That's also true. But even if there is no tefach, Alter Rebbe says, based on the Ramah, that you can cover the whole sukkah with the designated cover because it's like closing a door. So if you can say that about a sukkah, which is mamish for protection, how much more so here, which is only like an oil. See what I'm saying?
Something is the one. I forgot to ask you. We said we're allowed to put the cover on the table, correct? Even for it's falling all the way down. Not considered as oil, correct?
Yeah.
Now, after you did this, the kids come and making camping under the table. It's going to be okay?
No, just don't worry about that.
Absolutely okay. Absolutely okay, because the table is, they're camping under the table. They're not camping under the tablecloth. The cloth on top of the table, they don't care about it. The walls, yeah, but you're allowed to make walls on Shabbos. You can't make a cover. That's not a cover. Okay, so we continue in the Alter Rebbe. Oh yeah, so here, listen to this, how the Alter Rebbe answers the question of the around the tas. Such a coat does not resemble the bung of a barrel, right? The megufa, the bung of the barrel. They used to have a special cover for the barrel called the megufa, which is permitted to be removed and then returned to its place. It's in section 314. We already said you can take off the whole megufa and put it back. Because the bung was designed for that purpose. And its design indicates that it is designated for this purpose. Yeah. Therefore, it does not appear as the roof of a shelter. In contrast, when it covers the barrel with a cloth, there's a resemblance to making a shelter. Even if a cloth is designated for this purpose, it is not designated. Sorry, it is not designed in a manner that indicates that it is designated for this purpose. This is a very nice word. Same laws apply with regard to covering other containers whose openings are very wide, like the wide openings of the barrel of that era. So the Taz said, if it's the designated cover, it's mutter. No problem, because it doesn't look like you're doing anything like an oil. You're just covering what in the normal way to cover it. Mishnah Berurah says, "What do you mean?" We see that by that this cloth is a designated cover. Because if it's not a designated cover, you can't use the cloth because you may squeeze it out. Alter Rebbe explains there's a difference between cloths and covers that visibly look like they are designed for it. So a cover that's designed for it's similar to what Rosh Hashanah says actually about handles, right? If it has a handle, he says, it's clearly belonging to that thing. Similarly, anything that's designed for it, let's say it's the right measure, you know what I'm saying? It's the right color, it's something, it looks like it belongs there. So that's when we don't say it looks like an oil. Whereas a cloth in your mind, yeah, that's where it belongs. You decided. Maybe you've been using it for 20 years, but there's nothing that shows on the cloth. I mean, it's a cloth like any other cloth. So that's why it could still look like making an oil.
So, I think it is now, but it used to be carpet. convertible, that you would move the whole top.
The whole top, yeah.
Not the top, you just, so let's say now you want to put it on because it starts to rain. You're allowed to.
In your Shabbos car, you mean? Your Machon Somet Shabbos car.
Just putting it on, it's not anything. It's not nothing, no electron, nothing, just putting it on the car.
What's the hat there? What's the hat there? What's
I'm
the
just
hat there?
asking, is it oil or is it mixer or what?
Absolutely, that's an oil. That's an oil. That's not a cover for a Katie, that's a cover for you.
It's covered for the car.
You're not going.
Oh, you're not going in the car.
No.
Oh, you're not going in the car.
No, for the rain. Shabbos.
Why you cover the car?
It's raining.
Oh,
It's a convertible.
I think this makes sense.
Removable.
No, but.
Yeah, the old ones. Yeah,
But the car is moved, Rabbi.
No, in the 50s.
The car is moved. Oh,
Oh,
you change the tire?
we're approaching the
Rabbi, the car is
right
moved,
numbers
right?
for Minion.
2 more.
I already davened.
You're Davin. Who did Davin yet?
I davened and I'm babysitting.
This for you? You have 6 with the rabbi.
Oh, I didn't Davin.
Okay, 6, Baruch Hashem.
So let me just text my guy if he's coming and if he is.
If you can come a quarter to 10, because I have appointment with my accountant and I stay for.
I already told him 10 o'clock many hours ago.
Will you please? Because I have to write the letter to Access Florida, and he is waiting for me. Special, so please.
He's coming from far, so I don't think he's going to be able to, but I'll ask him. Okay.
What's his name? Coin. If he's available, come.
I have no
Oh,
idea.
what's the lawyer? What's his name? The lawyer.
Joseph?
Yes.
He davened already.
It's okay. We don't need anybody.
Okay, so let us continue. Is this the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe? Because if it is, it's something I think is significant. Okay, something to think about. Okay, he's coming now, 45. You're in luck.
Baruch Hashem. So we need one more.
Let me text Elchanan.
Is there an early minion of Mincha and Bel Harbor?
2 o'clock, yeah.
So there usually happens?
Depends on the day.
At the shul?
At the shul, yeah. Sometimes I'm in Sunny Isles because my son has violin lessons there a couple times a week. So sometimes I get a minion there in Israel.
See it now? Right. No,
Okay. Let us continue with number 20. Some say, There are authorities who maintain that this prohibition was not applied with regard to a barrel or the like, but only to a tank or the like, whose openings are uncommonly wide, far wider than ordinary openings. One should follow the first opinion. Those that are lenient, like the latter opinion, we don't have to stop them. Because some say that there is no concept of making an oil when it comes to covering kalim, even regarding containers that are uncommonly wide. Those are the Rishonim that we mentioned, the Rashba and the Raifid.
It did like it's that's the bathtub on small place, no?
I'm sorry?
The Egypt. You should take shower in it, take your bath in it. Big one.
Is that what it says? It says that?
Or the concept of dig it.
Where does it say that? Where does it say to take baths? I don't remember.
Dig it?
Yeah.
Well, dig it. I don't know what's dig it.
I don't remember about baths in them. I don't know. Okay, my friends, with no further ado, we move on to reviewing Siman 302. And we're going to do like a freestyle kind of review. Like, I'm just going to, we're going to do Chazar, 302, 313, 14, and 15. It was a request for Chazar. So even though there is no test next week, much to your great distress, or maybe the opposite, we are going to just do a brief review before we continue on with the next discussion of 316, which is Tzad. Yeah, today and tomorrow should cover it. So I'm just going to do some free association, meaning to say I'm going to talk and then I'm going to let you talk. We'll do like a little back and forth thing. All right? We did not do Shin Aleph.
What is it, 301?
No, 302. Shin Beis. What?
Good. You see 301.
You made a mistake. It's 302.
What is it, 301?
You made a mistake. Review sheet 301.
Oh, no, 302, 302. Should be 302.
I was wondering.
No, 302, sorry. Alavai 301. That would be a huge accomplishment. One of the longest Simanim in Hilchos Shabbos, maybe the longest. Okay. So, the halacha of shaking out garments. We had three opinions in the Rishonim as to what the problem is. Let's start with Rashi. Tell me what that is, according to Rashi.
To shake it, it's a schita.
No, that's a Benachanano.
Because if it's raining and it's touched the
Oh, if it's raining, it's schita. That's correct.
Yeah.
Certainly if you're makbid, and perhaps even if you're not makbid, because if it's raining, it's a lot of water, and therefore you're not going to want it to shrink and so on.
Okay.
So that's for sure. But what if it has dew on it?
dust,
Dew, tal.
atal,
Chibus.
Kibus, that's correct. The Ben Chanal says that's considered kibus. Yeah? Shin Beis, Anachnu v'Shin
I
Beis.
went to Shinada like
Me'atchala.
What's happening is the garment is new.
That's the issue. Only if it's new and black,
black.
and you mind, it bothers you. Because otherwise it's not important.
Why black?
Because dew on black is very visible. So it's a problem. On other colors, you don't really care. Actually, that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah says the whole thing is really to identify whether you care or not. If it's black and it's new, you're assumed to care. If it's not, then it's only if you actually care. But if it's those way, then it's assumed. Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. Alter Rebbe seems to say that it has to be black and new, and that you care. Not that it's assumed that you care. But the same idea anyway, because even if you care, if it's not black, but the fact is that it doesn't look so bad. So your caring maybe doesn't make a difference, because the fact is it's not a significant change, because it doesn't look so bad.
Shachor, it means Shachor or any dark color.
We talked about.
Yeah, we have.
Shachor.
We did, and what did we say?
Shachor.
Shachor is probably dark.
Dark or black?
Dark.
Black. Only black, we
but
say.
black. In those days, they didn't have that many colors, you said.
We said black. Shachor.
We said only black?
Yeah, we talked about blue
You
and
said there weren't that
dark
many
blue.
colors anyway.
We talked about dark blue and we said only Shachor.
The dark was-
I honestly don't remember, but I think the Yakud Yosef said only black. That's what I think. Although I'm not 100% sure. Say, anybody?
Yeah, אני זוכר.
I have a question that just came to me.
Yeah.
And this comes from something in another part of Shabbat I remember learning in the Gemara. The whole concept of if you care is because that suit.
Sorry. Shlomo Zalman says that dark is the same as black. Unless it's gray. Gray
Right.
is not. But dark is, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
The whole concept of if you care means that it's a new suit and you don't often get that new suit, and it's something that's going to be, hush to you. So you're going to be put in a position where you may come to do a suit. Fine.
Oh, no. It's not that you may come to do it. It's the fact that you care means that when you shake it off, you are accomplishing something significant.
That's what I meant, that you're accomplishing. It's
not that you're
because
coming to do it. That itself is the issur. The fact that it bothers you makes it awesome.
So what if, and I'm just borrowing from another concept in Shabbos, I remember learning about the wealthy women, they treated differently when they had the brooch, because for them they didn't care as much because they were used to having jewelry, and women that weren't wealthy.
That's about showing it off. They're not going to show it
Right,
off.
I understand. So
This is beneath their dignity.
Right,
They're so important.
So what I'm saying is, borrowing from that concept, what if someone is a very wealthy guy and every week he's getting brand new suits? Shouldn't that make a difference in his mindset? It doesn't mean that much to him anymore.
The point is,
It's new.
we're not telling him how to feel. We're letting him feel on his own. We're not going
That's
to
my
control
whole
his
point.
feelings.
That's my whole point.
The point is, if
anything,
it bothers him, then it's a problem, no matter how many suits he has. If it doesn't bother them, then it's not a problem, even if it's only suit.
how do we know that?
We ask him, does it bother you?
Rabbi, it was one story about.
Because it just seems that this is that, like you said, we're assuming.
Oh, in the Mishnah Berurah,
They're assuming.
in the Mishnah Berurah,
Make an assumption.
the Mishnah Berurah has a different word here. The Berurah says that this will make it bother you. Okay, even a rich person, new suit is still a new suit. No matter how many he has, new is new. And if it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good. On the contrary, rich people want to look good.
I
think.
But if
I
they're
don't know
used to
for sure,
getting
but
a
I
new
think
suit
so.
every week or something,
Still, but it has to look good. It doesn't make a difference. They have 20 of them, but the one they're wearing, they want it to look good. So it bothers them if it doesn't.
One rabbi gave to another rabbi, and the other rabbi did not want to shake it because he thought he cared, and he gave it back, right?
Exactly. We had that in the Gemara.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
So if it's dark blue or gray, what do we hold? Is that the same as black?
Gray is not, but dark blue is according to Shlomo Zalman.
Okay.
I don't remember what the Yalkut Yosef says for sure, but Shlomo Zalman says that it is usher.
What about dark orange, dark red? Any dark color, meaning a dark, or like it has to be like, for example, this jacket, or the rabbi's jacket.
Right.
Is it black or is that dark blue?
It's dark blue.
Officially, it's dark blue, but this would be a good example.
Right.
No, that's definitely dark
That
enough.
doesn't also mean.
I don't know.
That red. Say for the local brewer.
I don't know.
It's white.
No, I don't know.
For sure, Robert Hananel, or it was
Coming out.
For sure.
Could be both. Talis Chadasha, Lepir Shatoises Harash, Aram Rashab Poiskin, B'Shem Rabbeinu Chananel. Toises brought it in the name of Rabbeinu Chananel. Could be Rabbeinu Tam, in the name of Rabbeinu Chananel. But Rabbeinu Chananel was the first one that said it. יכול להיות. אני לא זוכר באמת. Okay, so who was? Yeah, the Rif and Rabbeinu Chananel, both very early Rishonim. Okay, the Baal Halachas Gedolos also. Yeah. Okay, so who can tell me about Rashi's opinion about dust?
Shake off the dust. It's like,
I'll shake off the dust, exactly.
Removing it from the inside, which is cleaning. Which is from the
Exactly.
inside of the virus.
And all of those conditions also only apply. Machaber does not bring down Rashi. which seems to indicate that he does not paskin like Rashi, because Tosfos disagrees with Rashi. Tosfos says that that's not significant, bit of dust, big deal. Again, without any liquid, right? Cleaning with liquid is a big problem.
You said that Rashi agrees with.
Yes. Yeah, correct. What about using a brush, according to Rashi? Instead of shaking it, using a brush.
One second. Soft.
Oh, right, exactly. Although, actually, I think the Mishnah Berurah says you can't use a brush anyway because it's within the chal. I think the Mishnah Berurah says it's within the chal, correct. I think the Mishnah Berurah says within the chal. If it's like a clothing brush.
And the Rav said a horse brush, something soft, would be allowed, something that you only use for Shabbos.
Right, exactly. If it's a clothing brush, so it's not allowed because it's something that's used for forbidden type of cleaning, even if you're using it for permissible cleaning. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, who was that? The Rambam, exactly. The Rambam says, talking about the little fibers that get mixed in when you're sewing it, when you're weaving it, you shake those out, and that is Gemar Malacha, and that is Makar Patish. So that was interesting. Okay. What if it bothers you only because it's Shabbos, and not if it was during the week, it wouldn't bother you?
If it's bothering Shabbat, you don't have to do that.
Actually, we had I think that Tzesa Shulchan tried to learn from the Gemara, or maybe it was the Mishnah Berurah. One of those tried to learn from the Gemara that it's mutter.
What?
That it's only also if it would bother you during the week. The fact that it was on Shabbos, that's that's an exception. That's not the standard. The standard is what you would do during the week.
And the week time, it's the opposite.
Did we?
I don't know. I haven't had the opposites. But that makes sense.
No, because they learned it from the story with Ula when he saw the people shaking it. No, the garments hat was with Rav Yosef and Abaya, I think. And they said the rabbis are disciplining the Shabbos, and Rav Yehuda said, just do it in front of him. Like, don't pay him any attention. Like, we know what we're doing, don't tell us what to do. And what was the discussion? I mean, there's different ways of learning the pshat. But one way we said is that the fact that they're doing it, obviously it bothers them. But Rav Yehuda said, no, because it only bothers us because it's Shabbos. The week we wouldn't be bothered. So therefore it's mutter. Let me just see if that's the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, I'm not seeing it here. I guess it was excessive shulchan. What if it bothers the owner and it doesn't bother the person who's doing it? What do you go by? The owner, yeah. No, that we said from Abaya and Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said it doesn't bother me. Because Abaya was hesitating, and Rabbi Yosef says it goes by me. It doesn't bother me.
So if a person is not bothered by someone who, someone's not shaking his arm.
Right, exactly. But vice versa.
Meaning if the hat is on the shelf.
Right.
Says, yeah, shake my hand.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother.
So it seems, yeah.
So why is he doing it? Shabbos? Maybe that's what it was.
Oh, maybe that too.
And I think that's what we said.
Could put those both together. Okay, removing thorns. if it doesn't bother them. Doesn't bother them. If it doesn't bother you because it's not yours, that's not, then everybody could just switch it off. Okay, removing thorns we said you could do even if it will cause it to rip, as long as you're careful not to rip it on purpose. We said if your clothing got tangled in thorns, you can take it out of the thorns, because the fact that you may rip the clothing while you're taking it out is not intentional. So it's like a davar she'eino miskabel.
What's that?
Wait, explain it again. Why is it not a problem?
Your intent is not to rip anything. So even if it rips, it's a davar she'eino miskabel. It's an unintended consequence, right? Kotzim.
How about borer, taking something bad away from something good? You're removing it.
Well, here he thinks because of
No, you're taking bad from good if you're taking the thorns out.
That's what you don't do the garbage.
not my food.
Or it can be stuff that's not food.
Borer does not have to be food.
Putting the garment out of the thorn, not the thorn out of the garment.
No, you're pulling the thorns out of the garment. They're stuck.
It's just the opposite. You're holding your hand and put it down. In the good, after the sex. No,
אתה לוקח את זה.
no,
זורק.
no. You're pulling the good out of the bed.
And in the case where you're not, in the case where you're taking.
So you're not allowed to do it. Pull the good out of the bed. That's it.
If there is a lint in a jacket, but this is a torn with something else, it doesn't belong to the jacket.
Does not go on
So
to
you
the
treat the
jacket.
jacket.
Well, why are you only asking about thorns? I mean, what about the rest of the Siman? What about when you're shaking off the dust in a way that's allowed? Because it's not white. Because it's not black. Because it doesn't bother. Because it's not new. What about borer?
The shaking to me doesn't seem as direct.
Why not? I mean,
If I
what's the
shake
difference?
the peas off the top of my rice.
Borer
Does
is
it have to be a mixture in order for it to be borer?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't there have to be a mixture to be borer?
What do you mean by mixture?
A bunch of these and a bunch of those mixed together? Here you just have a garment
You
and
have one garment and 10 thorns, you're saying. It's not enough. It's not enough of a mixture?
though.
No, that's not. I think maybe they're not interwoven.
That's what you're saying.
They don't have to be. Even
That's what you're saying. But I don't agree
Even
with that either because the thorns are interwoven.
Borer with socks and stuff.
doesn't that issue come up with Svarim?
What?
You're putting some Svarim back?
Yeah.
Is it a mixture or is it not? Taking the milk out of the fridge with the other bottles there, is that a mixture?
Yeah, but here it seems to be like enmeshed. It seems to be enmeshed. And Alphanon has to come, otherwise I'm in trouble. Oh, he's coming. I don't know.
Well, also with, let's say, a dog that flies into your drink, the wife says, take it out, it's just, it's not even sold, it's just complete garbage. It's not like good and bad, just garbage. It's not something at all.
It's also shared, so.
What? You can take a fly out of a drink, no problem?
That's what he says. He says it's good to take a little bit of drink with the fly. They said it's not that it's two things that, it's not.
Why not? Why not?
Aman said you can take a.
Why is it not a mixture?
Not that it's not a mixture, it's not that it's, let's say for example, peas and rice. Okay, I don't like peas, so I take it out. But this is not like a peas and rice concept.
Why not?
Because he's saying this is like garbage. It's not that it's.
Garbage is
It's not
better than
garbage.
peas and rice.
It's a
On the
personal
contrary,
thing.
peas and rice is a chiddush, even though they're both edible. The one you don't want is psolet. But something that's actually not edible, that's much more like borer, which is the chaff of the wheat, which is not edible. What I think you mean to say is because it's a liquid and a solid. That's what some of the poskim say. That a solid and a liquid is not a real mixture.
Otherwise, we focus on liquid.
Right. I think that's what you mean to say. So some say,
No,
well,
that's not what he brings down. He said he brings in that svar that it's not mixed. It's not considered a mixture.
why not? Liquid and solid, I understand. The garbage and not garbage is not a reason for it not to be a mixture. Go right ahead. Be my guest. I'm gonna delay that answer till we get to 319. Don't forget the question though. But by the way, the Shlomo Zalman discusses it in Shmir Shabbos about washing your dishes. He says, why are you allowed to wash dishes? Why don't we consider that you're
because we don't know which one are we going to get.
No, nothing to do with that. Why are you allowed to wash dishes? Why is it not considered a boyer? You're cleaning the dish. You're getting. He says no. Bad out of the good. Bad out of the good, exactly. He says no because that's in the eyes of the world. That's not considered mixed. They're not mixed. It's like dirt that's sitting on top of it. So maybe we can borrow that concept. Not sure. It's not exactly the same because there it doesn't penetrate at all. It's sitting on the surface. If it's penetrating in your dish, you got a serious problem. Here here the thorns are kind of stuck in. So I'm not sure. Something to think about. All right. Folding garments. Do we do it or not?
Yes.
Folding garments, yeah.
Yes.
In general, yeah. Specifically?
Not on the creases.
Not on the creases, thank you very much. Unless? In other words, not on the creases. Unless? When can you do it on the creases? You have to fill like 5 conditions to be able to do it on the creases. It has to be white, not black. New, thank you.
And inside out.
Only using it for
inside
Shabbos.
Inside out. Not the same. Not the same.
No, I'm talking about when you're doing it on the creases. Outside out and inside in. New, white, needed for Shabbos. It's the only one you have, and by yourself. Only one person. That's correct. Very unusual set of circumstances. But I did come across in Yalkut Yosef. He brings the Kolboy, who says, we're not particular about this entire halacha. People fold things nowadays because our folding is not like their folding. He says the way they used to fold, they did it so tight that when they got it like on the creases, it made a big difference in the garment. Nowadays, we don't see that it makes such a difference. Anyway, it's not pashut because the Machaber brings it, and that's how we pass him. But it's an interesting thing that the Kolboy says. So if a person is makel, he says not to protest. Okay, so my friends that are in London and New York and Los Angeles and Hollywood, not Hollywood, and Lakes. We're just going to break for Ma'ariv if you don't mind. We'll continue for a few minutes after Ma'ariv if you don't mind. Hey, you're staying here. Where are you going? Hey.
He's staying. I'm going.
אם נפל זבוב או יתוש לתוך כוס של יין או של מים.
נו.
בעיקר מותר להוציאה בשבת ביד או בכף, כדי לזורקם, אבל אפילו בלי משקה כלל. ואין לבקשה שגמור שאין ברירה
אוקיי.
באנו בדבר גרוש הנמצא בתוך דבר לך וניכר בפני עצמו. אבל אין הכוונה שבכל דבר לך אין ברירה. להיות טוב נכון להחמיר להסירה יחד עם מעט המשקה או שיעשה כן עטיית הכוס לצד ושפיכה.
Sorry. White, new. He needs it for Shabbos. He only has one, and only one person can fold. No, please, בבקשה.
Anyone more?
לא, בבקשה.
שיר המעלות,
Amén. Amén. Amen.
יש, למה רבנית שמע, היו פטורים עליו על כל ישראל, אמן.
Yeah.
You want to email that yeah, please.
Possible the AC continue to go down. I know it's on. It's not automatic. But it didn't stop because it wasn't. It's on. But still, it was set up for 69 and it's still going down to 68. You don't stop?
I will stop. She stopped it, but it didn't stop because I override it lower. On position.
I'm not. Yeah, but still, one is on.
The conversion will stop.
Then,
That's why I showed you when I showed up. stop because these two are not again.
Continue. בבקשה. Time is short. All right, my friends. Making the beds. No? Tell me.
Today something not complete. Not to face complete.
What? למה? זה חלום מקדש. And if you leave a little bit, you're still preparing.
You finish complete.
מה זה משנה? No.
So long as you're going to use it on Shabbat, it's fine.
If you're going to use it again on Shabbos, it's fine. Or if you're going to spend time in the room and it bothers you that it's dirty, that it's messy. But if you're not spending time in the room, you shouldn't even do a little bit. There's no difference, a lot, a little. You see what I'm saying? Either it's mutar or it's asur. Yes, there's no thing about leaving a little bit over. That's.
No, see, I have a question. Let's say you woke up in the morning, you're allowed to make up your bed, but if you want to really sleep in the afternoon, and then you wake up to go to Mincha, you shouldn't make up your bed again.
Yeah, if you're leaving the room, you're not coming back, so you don't need it.
What you asked is if you're allowed to put the sheet or something like that. You don't need the.
Only if you need it. Only if you need it for Shabbos. Okay, ironing. Of course, you can't iron with an iron on Shabbos. But even if you want to press it with pressure, you can't. Because in those days, the whole ironing process was just about pressure. And that was forbidden. Also, you can't make creases in garments. You know, to tikkun kli. Fixing.
By the way, this piece is going to be constantly the same. If you want to fold the paper, you shouldn't fold it right.
I don't think so. Lo shamati.
I got fold a page of things.
Yeah, why not?
No, but
Exactly that. Lama lo? Now, to make a paper airplane is something else. Maybe that's something else because you're making a keli, some kind of usable move, some kind of object. But just to fold, I mean, mazan hashana. You're not doing a tikkun, you know what I'm saying? By a garment, the crease is important, you know what I'm saying? But stam of paper, I don't think it's an issue. I didn't see the favorites, but I don't think it's an issue. Sorry?
What happens if the child goes inside the bed and makes the 10 out of the sheet?
That's all.
We discussed it. He shouldn't. I mean, if he's very little and he's not the age of chinuch is one thing, but if he's old enough to be educated, it's he shouldn't really do that.
So if I pick up a piece of like a flyer in shul on Shabbos, I want to put it in my pocket? Can I fold it for that? Because I'm not cleaning it. I'm just folding it so I can put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Great.
No problem. Okay, where to scrape off mud?
The wall,
He
no?
said if a child made a tent, bed, my question now is, are you allowed to benefit from something that was made on Shabbos?
Are you allowed to use that oil? Is that your question?
He wanted their bed as poles. He put down a big smicha. However, he did that.
Can you benefit from
And
it?
you sleep in that bed.
Leaving it up, is that your question?
We're not allowed to take it down.
I think you're allowed. Because the only shogeg. I mean, the kids do it. Because the rabbi said al for in Shabbat in the synagogue, in case the Jew build a tent in Shabbat, the shogeg, he will allowed benefit from this tent? You can sit in Shabbat and eat in the tent.
Sure, if it was a derabanan, you can benefit from a isur derabanan b'shogeg, which this is a derabanan. It's not a oil kavua. Maybe that too. Maybe. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay, based on what you're saying. Shogeg on an isur derabanan is mutar. Okay, so scraping off mud from your shoes. Machlokes, if it's better to do it on the wall or the ground.
The ground could be an issue because of owning, right?
No, because of a chayrish. Basically making the ground equal, you know what I mean? Filling the hole. The wall could look like you're adding to the wall. But the wall is better than the ground. Some permit both, some forbid both. Anyway, different opinions. Memachek, what's memachek?
Sorry, what was the issue? What is it?
On the wall, on the ground, there's a problem that you may find a hole to do it into. You know what I mean? And then you'll fill the hole, mashra gumis, which is a tool of chayrish. On the wall.
Why isn't bona? I thought filling up a hole is also a form of bona.
Bona or chayrish?
Bona, building.
Just to fill a hole in the ground? I mean, you're not really building anything. I don't think so. Maybe in a house, maybe inside a house where you want a smooth floor, maybe that's bona. But outside, like in a field or in the yard, that's not really boina. But that's, to yipui karka. To make the ground nice is a tool of chayrish.
So it's the same concept then. You're improving it.
Proving it, yeah. So, mamachek, we said, is to smoothen leather. And that's included if you smooth it by scraping the surface. Shoe polishing is therefore forbidden. Shoe wiping is permissible, by the way. If your shoes are dusty, you can wipe it off. Rubbing off a mud stain.
What about something wet?
Sorry?
What about getting wet?
Interesting.
Shoes.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be the best way to take off dust, but let's just.
Interesting shaila.
What if you have dirt on your shoes?
So first of all, let's talk a little bit about cleaning leather, since you're bringing that up. In general, you're allowed to clean leather with water directly, only water. But you can't scrub it with your hands as you're running water over it.
So kind of rinse over.
Kind of rinse it off, but not scrub it. Basically, water is... I don't think so.
So I could do that with a shoe also? If my shoe's dusty, I could wipe it off with a wet cloth?
I don't think so. I think you can either use your hand or water. I don't think you can use both. I'm sorry. Daniel, what were you saying?
Well, I was just asking about if the shoe is dusty, or can I use like a wet cloth to wipe off the shoe?
That's exactly the question that's being asked here. And we're trying to address that. So let's think a little bit at a time. Water alone is allowed because leather is in between garments, which you can't use water at all, and hard surfaces, which you can use water and scrub, like wood, table, plastic, whatever. But something that's like pliable, like leather, so if you scrub it with water, that already looks like washing. According to the Alter Rebbe, but never because it's somewhat absorbent and it looks like garments because it moves. You know what I mean? It's pliable, so that's why it's still not mutter to scrub it. But so bottom line is that so if you just pour water on it is okay. Now you're asking about wipes. In general, there's a machlokes about wipes. You should just know as a side point. Is using a wipe considered schita? Some say yes, because your objective is to use the moisture that's in there to clean. So obviously you want some of the moisture to come out as it cleans the surface.
It's not that it's inside and you want to take it out. The thing is wet. Just even the surface is wet.
Surface of the
yeah, it's not that it's
surface of the wipe. Of the wipe, you're saying.
The wipe itself is wet. It's not that when you squeeze, water comes out.
Right.
You're not extracting.
There's no even need to extract. The whole wipe is moist.
Right, but there is also absorbed in there. There's also absorbed in there. So it's a machlekes. It's a machlekes. I don't remember who the opinions are.
Not all wipes you could use in Shabbos. Some of them to wet, some of them when you pull the tearing each other is like
tearing is an issue. Tearing is an issue.
By the
So
way, when I say pouring water on the level, it's been just with a pitcher, or you can take like the garden hose and very bit high pressure to remove the
I think so. I think you can use water even with pressure.
Yeah.
You can scrub, as far as I
have
know.
those options right there.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'm not sure, even if besides the schita issue, I'm not sure if it's mutter, just because if you're wiping with a wipe, you know what I mean, you are kind of using pressure and liquid at the same time. You know what I'm saying? You are using liquid, that's why you want the wipe,
Right, and using your pressure.
and you are using pressure, so it seems like a problem. And I came across a very interesting thing in the Hilchos Yosef, which, based on that, I did not do the right thing for many years. He says an interesting thing. He says, based on this concept that you cannot be meshafshef, you cannot like scrub leather with water, he says soft plastic has the same din, because it's not really an absorbent surface, but it's movable, so it's somewhat like a garment, even though it's not a garment. So he says, for example, the baby's bottle, the nipple of the baby's bottle, where sometimes there's some leftover junk there and you want to wash it out. He says you can wash it only by pouring water on it. You can't rub it with your fingers with that water in it.
Who's saying it?
Yeah, could you say
It's not rubber?
rubber, plastic, same thing.
Plastic, same kind of-
Yeah, same thing. The point is that it's
It's
a pliable surface, even though it's not absorbent, but it's pliable.
It says that's then or that's
Yeah, I think he says it's Meker Adin. Let me just bring it up here, because it is a chiddush. Oh, here he also discusses folding paper. Hilchos Yosef. He says you're allowed to fold paper on Shabbos. For example, if you're learning a sefer and you want to fold the corner over to remind you where you're up to, or to be able to go it over on Motzei Shabbos, it's no problem. It's not considered hachana and it's not considered kippur.
But then I'm trying to think, you would make it very tight. Or when you
It depends. I don't know if it says it somewhere. I want to see it. I don't know. מותר לנקות פטמת בקבוק של תינוק העשוי מפלסטיק על ידי שביעתו במים או שפיכת מים עליו, אך לא ישפשף את ערכי הפטמה זה בזה, וכן לא ישפשף על ידי כלי או ביד בעודו רטובה. הפה אמור לאל.
Those baby cleaning bottles are not allowed.
Big problem, yeah, exactly.
Things you stick in the bottle.
Exactly. This is huge. הפה אמור לאל דמינו לעשוי מאור מותר ליטל עליו מים על לשתו בהם, אבל עשוי בשפשוף. בניילון דינוי כדין בגד אור. רבי בציונים שבוע הנעל, שמשם שכל חסי. עין בביר הלוחה שכזה שכל זה שזה. Wow. This is huge. And it's a problem because when you have dirty, you can't really use a dirty bottle. You don't want to give a baby a dirty bottle.
Well, what you can do
What do you do?
Right.
You can soak it until it's so soft that it just comes off.
Shake it. You also shake it up.
I think so. I think so. As long as you're not using your hand or a keli. I think so.
Go to the Shmir Shabbos and say that?
Yeah. Shmir Shabbos, page 128. Okay. We do still have to cover rubbing off mud stains and more, primarily about actual cleaning with liquid, clean garments. We still have what to cover, but that shouldn't be that long. And I hope to finish both that, as well as 313, 314, and 315. Is that practical? All in one night. Chazar? No. No. Because we did it. I know you were in a holy place, but
when I wasn't here?
it was when you weren't here, but it's online. The review is online. Sorry.
Which Simanim are we covering next time?
The plan is to go through as much as we can, besides finishing this, to go through Shin Gimel Yadalat and Tezvav. So Boina, the end of Shin Gimel, where we started,
Tomorrow.
Binyan Bekalim, tomorrow.
Oh, what's on Monday? Next Monday?
I would like to start Tzad already. Tzad, Shin Tes Zayin. Trapping. That's the general plan. All right, my friends, have a good evening.
Thank you.
My pleasure, all the best.
So what happened with Rabbi Wallner?
Rabbi Vosner, it seems, had a